Reading with your kids.
Hola, niho, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, cha, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jedley. I am delighted to welcome you to Reading with Your Kids. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts, and it truly is beautiful here as spring has sprung. We're so happy and so very honored that you join us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show and let them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Good Pods, Audible, Podcast Addict, wherever you find your favorite shows. We have a bug-tacular episode for you today. Our first guest is Roger McMullen. He is here to celebrate his new graphic novel. It's called Cicadapocalypse. We are also going to be taking a listen back to some highlights from past episodes featuring Ana Maria Rodriguez and Fernanda Lazaro that celebrate scuba diving spiders and bumbling bees.
I don't know about you, but I love riddles. I'm Rilla B, and I have one for you. Are you ready? I can take you places you've never been, all while staying in the comfort of your home. I have a spine, but I'm not an animal. Do you know what I am? If you guessed a book, you would be correct. And the reason I gave you a book riddle is because I have a podcast where we have authors come on and read us amazing books. We also stretch and we do fun riddles. So if you want to check it out, check out Reading with Rilla B anywhere that you stream your podcasts. We'll see you there. Toodles!
This episode is brought to you by Astronaut Aquanaut, how space science and sea science interact. A fantastic book written by our Dean of all things STEM and Scene, Jennifer Swanson. Journey from the deepest trenches in the ocean to the farthest humans had ventured into space and learn what it takes to explore the extremes. You might just be surprised at how similar the domains of astronauts and aquanauts really are. Get your copy today. Astronaut Aquanaut, written by Jennifer Swanson of Reading with Your Kids. Certified great read. This episode is also brought to you by My Sister Wanson Elephant, written by Lynn Podrat. It's a heartwarming and delightful children's story that showcases the determination and teamwork of Randy and Jerica as they strive to convince their mom to consider their unusual pet request. This book inspires children to think creatively, explore alternative solutions, and maintain a positive outlook in pursuing their dreams. It's a really fun book. It is a Reading with Your Kids certified great read. Get your copy today. My Sister Wants an Elephant. Join us right now from the beautiful state of Utah. Our guest is here today to celebrate his brand new graphic novel. It's called Cicadapocalypse. Please welcome to the show, Roger McMullen. Hey, Roger, how are you?
Hello, thanks for having me.
I'm delighted to have you on. This looks like a really fun project, not only to read, but it looks like you had a lot of fun creating this project.
Very true. So I'm based in Utah right now, and Cicadapocalypse is something that is happening in the eastern side of the United States. As millions of periodical cicadas emerge in about 17 different states. And so this book kind of focuses on that and kind of hopefully alleviates some of the fears that surround that.
We don't have much of an issue here in Massachusetts. We certainly have grasshoppers, but they're kind of here all the time. Cicadas are something different, right? They're like grasshoppers on steroids or something?
Yeah, so cicadas, they're about thumb-size flying insects. They emerge, they are nymphs for most of their lives, for 13 or 17 years. They're underground, and when their time clock kind of ticks up, then they all emerge in mass, and they pop out of their little shells, their exuvae, and then they fly, they mate, and in like 4 to 6 weeks, they're dead. And there are cicadas throughout the U.S. Just annually, but these are kind of, again, these periodical cicadas that are only in specific areas depending on the year. And actually in Boston, well, technically a little bit southeast of Boston, you all will get them in 2025. And so get excited.
So so it's just not one giant mass that only comes out once every 17 years. It's like they're different times. So we might have a group of cicadas coming out every year, but just in different places.
Correct. Yeah. So different species. So there's cicada. There's like annual cicadas. They're usually kind of green. They're a little bit bigger than these periodical ones. Periodical cicadas are have a black body and red eyes, and these are the ones that are a little bit smaller, and they come out every 13 or 17 years. And so what's confusing often in the media is, they'll say, oh, the cicada emergence is happening. And inevitably someone will say, oh, this happened last year. This always happens. You always say this or whatever. And that's because, that will happen for the next almost like eight plus years, except for 2026. But in different regions, they call them broods. So it's like a group. Like this year, for example, they're in Illinois, they're in Tennessee, they're in North and South Carolina. So it really just depends on the year when these broods emerge. And so, like I said, in Massachusetts, they will have you'll have them next year, and then a couple of other states as well, a different brood.
It's really fascinating. I'm wondering when the light bulb went off. When, somebody finally figured out, like, hey, this happened 17 years ago, and it's going to happen in another 17 years in the future.
Yeah, there's been a number of entomologists who've been really excited about this. I think in the 20s, John Marlett worked a lot to kind of document this. He had people literally send in postcards and like, hey, we're getting cicadas here. Hey, we're getting cicadas. And then he divided them up into the 20-plus kind of groupings, the broods that we know today. And there's just been lots of other amazing entomologists who've studied this.
Yeah.
So.
Is the United States the only place where this happens, or is this something that happens all around the world?
Well, I was actually reading today there is other periodical cicadas that I just forgot the country, but they call them the World Cup cicadas because it happens every 4 to 5 years, and I think it's 4 years, which is hence the World Cup cicadas. But the 13 or 17 is specific and unique to eastern United States. It doesn't really go past the Mississippi.
Wow. Fascinating. You obviously are fascinated by this subject. How did you get into it?
So I used to live in Maryland. That's where I was born and raised. And Maryland is one of the places that gets the cicadas. And so brood 10, when I was just graduating out of high school, the cicada emergence, or brood X is often how you see it. It's Roman numerals. So it was brood 10. But yeah, so I witnessed one of those emergences, and it really is just this fascinating, amazing, really cool event of just like millions of insects just on every surface. So you look up at a tree, and also there's the sound. So that's one of the biggest things about cicadas, unlike locusts, like you're saying. So quick differentiator there. Locusts, they bite and chew, and they can destroy crops and things like that. Cicadas are totally harmless. They don't bite, they chew. They don't bite, they don't sting, they're not poisonous. They're pretty chill as far as insects go. So they're just flying around. Again, their main prerogative is mate and then lay their eggs. And so, going back, the cicadas, again, just seeing them in mass. I know, like, some areas, especially, I don't know if Boston gets the mayflies and things like that, but just seeing hundreds of these insects on, like, every leaf, all up the trunk, their little shells are there and everything. It's just a really fascinating, interesting thing happening. And so, that was the other thing is the sound. Is kind of their iconic, the trademark of the cicadas. It's kind of the sound of summer for a lot of people.
Wow. I'm fascinated, and I'm also fascinated at your fascination. It's I love And I say this to people. I love speaking to somebody who is passionate about something, even if I have no interest in it at all. I had this really neat experience. I was traveling. I think I was in Virginia, and there was a cave system, and I had the day, and I was by myself, and so I said, what the heck? And it was, I think, a Wednesday afternoon, and there was no one else there. And so I had a private tour of this cave system, and when you're getting a tour around the cave system, they have all these corny jokes and everything, and I go, hey, you know what? Why don't you just you tell me what is fascinating about this cave? What do you think is fascinating? And he was a geologist, and man, I learned so much. I mean, it's all gone now, but it was just wonderful spending time with him because he obviously just loved the earth and geology. And you seem fascinated by cicadas. Is it just cicadas, or are you a bug guy?
I definitely like all insects. I'm not an entomologist technically. I just big fan. So passing it on to the kids. They're all around us. I mean, they're the bottom of the food chain for the most part, and so there's lots to love. They're everywhere. There's lots we can learn from them too. So, cool.
I'm kind of ambivalent about bugs. I was fascinated by them when I was a kid. Don't have much of an issue with them now unless they're ants getting into our kitchen. But one of the scariest moments I had in my life was visiting Puerto Rico. We're out in the country, and a flying cockroach landed on my car that was as big as a helicopter. It might have been a little, but it seemed like it was as big as. At first, that it flipped me out, but then to see the size of this thing, it was like, whoa.
Yeah, the tropical regions get some crazy huge insects, and if you look at some of like the fossils, like there's dragonflies that are like 6 feet or 3 or 6 feet long, and I'm just like, holy cow!
Yeah,
intense.
So in Cicadapocalypse, is this kind of like a science book that kids are going to learn all about cicadas, or is there kind of a spooky story behind it too?
Yes.
Yes.
So Cicadapocalypse is basically what I've done is, so I have a little bit of a background in education. I work for a couple of ed tech company, and one of the things that I realized is that people learn best through stories, especially children. And so instead of just kind of hammering you with facts about cicadas and how cool they are, what I've done is I've kind of taken the story of these two squirrels, Faye and Cyrus, and they experience the cicada emergence. And at first they're terrified, they're running away and trying to hide in Faye's bunker. She's a prepper, and they're again very scared of these cicadas. But as the story progresses, they kind of come at peace for various different reasons. They're introduced by a bird. They're like, hey, you can eat these. I'm like, oh, this is great. So there's lots of just learning that happens along the way. And then there's kind of an appendix narrated by the cicada nymph, so the baby cicada. And he kind of goes through the book again and just says like, hey, remember this part in the book? This is what you were learning. Or like, these are the facts that are about the cicadas. And so yes, it is kind of more of a narrative, but along the way you are learning things. And I hope the takeaway, and again, there's lots of like resources at the end of the book and also on my website, cicadapocalypse.com, that you can kind of, there's activities, things like that, again, to kind of immerse yourself, into the world of cicadas.
You know, you're right. Story is the best way to learn. And we know that because that's what advertisers do to try to sell us things. You know, they tell us stories. They don't sit there with facts. It's, little stories about, well, if you want to look good, you need to buy this product, or you want the girls to like you, need this kind of car and that kind of thing. So a great lesson. Tell me, do you consider yourself an illustrator who writes or a writer who illustrates?
Illustrating is definitely, I'm stronger at that than writing. But so I have called on my brother. Lots of people have kind of looked at this and edited. SCBWI and a couple other groups have kind of just again kind of peer edited and helped me along the way to strengthen the writing. This has gone through a couple iterations and things. So hopefully this is the best it can be. There's always, as an artist, you're always like, oh, but wait, I should have done this better or whatever. But I'm happy with how it is.
Yeah. And how did it come to you? Are you, I'm fascinated by the different creative processes people have. And I know there are some author illustrators who will start with an image and others who will start with the story. What about for you? With this book that is story driven but also educational, did the images come first?
Weirdly enough, so I actually, because I had kind of an educational goal with this, of like, hey, don't be afraid of cicadas. They're actually really cool, and insects are really cool. I actually approached this from almost like a teacher perspective and had educational goals first. And as I kind of like fleshed those out and understood like, okay, here's the things people don't understand or don't align with, then as I looked at those, I was like, okay, these are interesting points and things I can explore, and that's where the narrative came from. And then just because illustration takes a lot more time, I end up doing the kind of the writing first and then the illustrations, and then they kind of in tandem balance each other out.
Yeah. Well, I love the illustrations on your website, and they're really fun.
Thanks. Yeah, it's it's kind of wild. They're fun. So again, I guess that's just so it's a graphic novel. If it hasn't been clear, but I think those are really popular right now, especially amongst kind of middle grade and elementary school, and that's kind of the target for this book is for those people who are especially immersive or kind of learning to read. I know some of the vocab is a little technical, so it's kind of, again, for that, it skews a little older, 8 to 12 years old. But, yeah, so hopefully the illustrations capture the mind and also help kind of ease the pain of reading, just reading straight text about cicadas and me nerding out about how cool that is.
Well, one of the things that I've really come to learn is the graphic novels are reading, and there's lots of great writing in graphic novels. It really is great literature, and I had trouble accepting that when my son was in those middle school ages, and I certainly supported him and brought him home lots of graphic novels and manga and anime and all that. But there were too many times when I walked into his room and said, dude, can you please read a book that doesn't have a picture in it? Please, just once, so I didn't give him the props and acknowledge that he was reading, and he was doing a ton of reading. And so I hope any parent out there, don't be a dope like me. Encourage that reading. Understand that your kid who is into graphic novels, they're reading, and don't discount that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And there's definitely still hot debate, especially with the rise of graphic novels that being more and more popular amongst educators and things like that. But again, I think a balance is always appropriate, but especially if your child struggles to read, it's such a great tool to kind of have the visual cues and then also like reinforce with the actual text.
Yeah. I mean, that's how we're living our lives these days. Kids are learning through images on social media and television, and advertisers tell stories through commercials and graphics that surround us. So it makes perfect sense that kids, especially certain kids, will gravitate towards graphic novels.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. Are there any other bugs that you're looking to nerd out on and create another graphic novel for?
Right now, it's just been so much. This has been, I started this in the emergence of Brood 10 and 2021, and it's kind of it's ramped up to now, and it's been a lot. So this is a self-published book, It's been vetted again by educators, by entomologists, by a lot of people. It's currently in several museum gift shops and things like that. So it's been a labor of love, and you don't see it right now, but I have a ton of books right behind me that I'm shipping out constantly, and it's just been exhausting. So, well, I do have a couple things on the docket. There's no determined which insect or what's next. So.
You know, for those of you who can't see, when I asked Roger that question, of fear of dread just crossed his face like, no, enough. There, yes. There's lots of books there. Are cicadas your favorite bug, or do you have another one that is closer to your heart?
Yeah, cicadas are definitely a favorite right now. Again, I think one of the coolest things is periodical cicadas. Again, they have no defenses. They are defenseless insects. And so their only method of defense is to emerge by the millions. And so they call it predator satiation. And that means that basically there's so many of these insects that even if, all the squirrels and raccoons and turtles and everything else eat as much as they can of these insects, there's still enough to procreate and keep the species alive. So it's a very unusual strategy. It's basically like, some of us will die, but others will continue on. And so I think it's such a cool testament to the fact of, like, there's strength in numbers, and that's a powerful thing to remember, that banding it together with others of a similar perspective or for a cause is a really powerful thing.
Yeah. I love that you kind of asked the question without me asking it. You answered the question without me asking it, and that's certainly one of the great conversations that families can have as they're experiencing Cicadapocalypse together.
Yeah. So I hope people will enjoy the book. It's a fun journey, kind of crazy, but it's something especially kids who are experiencing it. Again, all the different states that are having the cicada emergence. It's a great way to kind of understand them better, and to, like you said, there's lots of little questions and things that can spark a curious mind.
Well, I'm curious to find out where we can go to find out more about Cicadapocalypse and more about you, and order some of those books that you have.
Yeah, so I would definitely check out cicadapocalypse.com. That's the primary site that has all of those activities, has all the information about the book and a place to order it there. It even shows there's a flip book at the very corner of it. You can see a cicada nymph actually emerge out of its shell. And so you can see the preview of that flip book there. So yeah, cicadapocalypse.com. Again, it's cicada, C-I-C-A-D-A, apocalypse. Anyway, there's only one A in the middle.
All right. We've had a great time speaking to the author and illustrator of Cicadapocalypse. Our guest has been Roger McMullen. Roger, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hey there, families! Are you looking for an exciting way to bond and learn together? Look no further than our STEM is Family Fun video series. Join us as we explore the fascinating world of STEM through hands-on activities right in your own home. Our series features lessons from experts at renowned institutions like the San Diego Children's Discovery Museum, the National Children's Museum in Washington, D.C., and Children's Museum Houston. From making homemade rainbow bridges to creating an oboe out of a straw, there's something for everyone in the family to enjoy. So grab your lab coats and get ready for an adventure. Go to readingwithyourkids.com and click on the STEM is Family Fun link at the top of the page and let the learning and laughter begin. STEM is Family Fun, where learning and bonding go hand in hand. Looking for the perfect family read for the Summer Olympics? In Takedown by Laura Chauvin, Lev is determined to compete at the State Wrestling Championship. But when he's paired with a new partner, a girl, Lev and Michaela push each other to excel. But when they meet on the mat, only one can win. Takedown is a multiple award-winning and state list-nominated middle grade novel about families, friendship, and hard work. Get your copy today at bookshop.org or check out the free educator's guide at laurachauvin.com. Right now, we're going to take a listen back to a conversation we had with Ana Maria Rodriguez about her book, Secrets of the Scuba Diving Spiders. So tell us about the secrets of the scuba diving spider, please.
Well, the scuba diving spider is one of the chapters of the 5 chapters in this book, and all are about secrets. So who is not interested in secrets, right? Especially animal secrets. And I call them secrets because until the scientists studied the animals and figured out how they do what they do, nobody knew about it. So they discovered that secret, they published, and then I had the wonderful experience to go and talk to these scientists, and some occasions I could visit their labs and see what they were doing, and they pass on those secrets to me, and I pass them on to the kids.
Yeah.
And one of them, one of them is the scuba diving spider.
And so spiders are able to go and breathe on the water or exist underwater for a certain amount of time?
Well, not all the spiders, just one.
Okay.
Just one. All spiders breathe air like we do in a different way, right? They get their air differently, but they need to breathe air. Now, this particular spider figured out a way of building up or creating a bubble around its body, and then she takes that bubble, goes inside the bubble, and then dives into small ponds where it lives and lives all its life under the water. She eats there, she sleeps there, has her babies over there, the families over there, and when she runs out of air, then she comes back to the surface for a little bit, gets a little bit more air, and goes back in. And that's great because now it's pretty much the only spider that does this, and she's totally has avoided all the other predators that are on the land catching the spiders. She is out of that place, and she's safe from all those. It's a very interesting adaptation.
Wow, that's fascinating. I'm really fascinated how nature and different species adapt to the environment. And sometimes they just adapt in these amazing ways that you would never dream of.
Yeah, that's what I'm fascinated. That's what this the Animal Secrets Revealed. That's the name of this series, of which the Scuba Diving Spider is one of the books that are all about this fascinating adaptations. And if I can tell you about the other secrets on the books, just let me know. I have one that is quite perfect for Halloween, although it could go anytime, which is about the real zombie beetles. So there are some kind of beetles that the way they behave, it looks like the zombies that people have created in fiction, right? So, but these are like really, this is a very interesting combination of two animals that there's a wasp that lays eggs inside of this little ladybug. And then when it lays the eggs, she goes away, the wasp, but the eggs grow and, develop inside the little ladybug. The ladybug doesn't seem to be bothered about it. She goes about its life until it reaches a moment when the little eggs are transformed into a cocoon that comes outside this little beetle, this little ladybug. And at that point, something happens to the beetle that is paralyzed. It cannot move anymore. So it's stuck sitting on top of this cocoon. And the only thing the little beetle can do, the little ladybug can do, is sometimes kind of twist or shake a little bit. And this seems to be enough for all the predators of this little cocoon to go away. They get scared. They think that the little ladybug is going to, do something to them. And this allows the cocoon to develop into a new spider. Then after a certain time, the new spider comes out, and the cocoon slowly, disappears. And slowly, too, the little beetle, the little ladybug, regains control of his body. And apparently, like nothing happened, keeps moving about and goes about his own business. Wow. So it's a very interesting adaptation. And what the scientists discover is that what paralyzes the beetle, the ladybug, is a virus that at the same time that the wasp ingests the eggs carry a virus that specifically paralyzes the poor beetle temporarily until the wasp is developed. Isn't this amazing?
It is crazy. It's just, I mean, talk about outsourcing. I mean, boy, oh boy, that is just, it's fascinating, and it just blows my mind that so much of nature is all around us. You know,
Yes.
my family and I, we live in the city, but it's not the city part of the city. We're on the city line, and there are trees here, and there's a wildlife sanctuary. So just in our little plot of land, you know, when my kids were younger, we would go out and we would imagine that there are literally thousands of different species and creatures living on our little piece of land. And it's wonderful that you've created a series of books that help families kind of understand some of the life that's happening around them.
Yeah, definitely. And this is on the theme of your podcast. I mean, I was, I interview the scientists, and sometimes I visit them, and at the end, I send them a copy of the book where their research is included, and I get feedback from them that is delightful, because one say, well, I sat down with my grandchildren reading your book, and of course I started with my own chapter, right? But they love it, and they are so excited. Another scientist told me that his little granddaughter, when he saw that he's actually is the one that the cover is from, he said, my granddaughter loved it that I am in the book, and she's taking it with her for show and tell at school.
Wow.
And so it's really bringing this to the kids, but I hope that this connection that now the researchers I talk to have with their kids or their grandkids also expands to animals. There's some books that you can read to other kids. The stories are like, well, why this scientist was interested in doing that? And I include anecdotes that happened to this scientist. It's one, for example, that it's another scientist works with this little tiny squid that lives in Hawaii, and his laboratory is in Connecticut, and once a year he travels to Hawaii to capture new squids to bring to his aquariums in the lab, talking about nice vacation linked to work, right?
Yeah.
Going to Hawaii. So, well, he was telling me, oh, my job is interesting, but sometimes I think the squid have like a revenge with me. And you say, how come? But the other day, said the scientist, I was putting my new white lab coat and go to work with the squid, and as soon as I took it out of the water, I squirt a ton of black ink onto my new white coat. And well, that was all it did. He said, well, that was a terrible surprise, because I thought that lab coat will last more than it did. And it's something that is very hard to wash it off. He said, you cannot wash it off. That's why ink was used by monks a long time ago to write. Wow. Because it won't go away. Mm-hmm. So, we try to combine, I try to combine this anecdotes with the science, and try to instill that passion that the scientists have for their discoveries. Mm-hmm. And yes, you said, I mean, go out for a simple walk, and I'm sure you'll spot many different animals and also different plants that have secrets that have not been uncovered yet.
Yeah. As you're talking, a couple of things came to my mind. One is just this idea of passion. And, we hear about parents all the time, being involved if their kids are athletic. They're supporting their kids on the soccer team, or if their kids are dancers, they're going to the dance recitals. But not every kid is an athlete. Not every kid is a dancer. Some kids have this passion for discovery. And I love that you've created a series of books that families can kind of sit down and bond over that passion for discovery. And, again, as you're talking, my wife and I just recently visited the beautiful nation of Panama, and we're out in the rainforest, and we were amazed at all the creatures that we saw that were unique to us, and that everybody else in Panama was kind of going, oh, yeah, we see that all the time. But then it clicked because we host international kids here in our home, and when we've had kids from Japan or from China, and they've seen some of the wildlife that comes in through our backyard, creatures that we take for granted, and they're fascinated, and they're going out and they're staring at a squirrel for an hour because they've never seen that type of squirrel before. And I think I think your books give parents, give kids a reason to relook at their surroundings, to kind of look at their surroundings in a new, more curious way.
Yeah, and kids are naturally curious. I mean, adults too, but kids, I mean, it's something new and they just get into it and are fascinated by it. I'm sure it's naturally trying to understand, but why do they do this? Mm-hmm. And why? And I think all scientists are still kids at heart somehow, because they keep that natural curiosity that leads them to dedicate their professional life to do maybe what kids would do, just sitting down there observing and then testing and then figuring out how the animals do things. And it's sometimes not just for curiosity by itself, which is, I think, is very satisfying, but also sometimes we discover things, how animals do things that maybe we can apply to solve our own problems. Mm-hmm. Could be in medicine, could be in technology. So it's many benefits of just looking at nature, our surroundings. And that's what I'm trying to do with my books, kind of, especially as you said, I mean, most of us, I mean, I think we live in an urban environment, and unless we purposely go outside, we are not going to interact with it. But definitely it's something that we cannot lose more, because, I mean, we are just missing a very important part of life.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, I joked earlier on when you lumped me in with the kids, and I was very grateful for that. But I'm just thinking about, just imagine as a parent, you know, we love sitting down and reading with our kids and having that bond. But just think how wonderful it would be to, you know, take your book and to read it, and then just go outside and sit on a log with your child and be fascinated with the nature. And then suddenly you're no longer parent and child, you know, the person with all the answers. You're suddenly another child, a child of the universe, just sitting there and experiencing this with your son and with your daughter. What a great bonding experience.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was going to say. I mean, it's just sharing that situation, sharing that experience, I think, is what will create a long-lasting bond between parents and children, and it's going to be something that those children can also pass along to their own children in the future when they have them. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a very, very reading is together in getting to know nature more. It's a part of our lives that we are missing a little bit, and I tried with my books to try to bring that back. And not everybody has the opportunity to travel all over the world and exploring things, but I think books are the first step to get you hooked into that desire of understanding your surroundings, nature, and then maybe some of those children later on will go and dedicate their lives to that. And if they don't, but at least they have this experience that I'm sure will last forever. It does for my kids. They tell me, Mom, you took us to so many zoos and museums and read so many books, and every time we were on a vacation, you tried to find a nature kind spot. And they still remember that, and for them, still they have that interest in nature.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be cool if your kids can learn all about emotions by reading a bedtime story with you? Let me introduce you to Bella Santini in the Land of Everlasting Change. This award-winning fairy tale book has captured the hearts of parents and children alike. Louise Jane, she's the CEO of Golden Wizard Book Awards, says that this book is a life-changing masterpiece. Bella Santini is the winner of the prestigious Golden Wizard Book Award and the Mom's Choice Awards. Get your copy of Bella Santini and the Land of Everlasting Change today. A magical journey to emotional growth awaits. Right now, we're going to take a listen back to a conversation we had with Fernanda Lazaro, celebrating her Tillson Bugger Adventures. Joining us right now from Toronto in Ontario in the beautiful nation of Canada. Our guest is the author of the Tillson Bugger Adventures. Please welcome to the show, Fernanda Lazaro. Fernanda, how are you?
Thank you, Jed. I'm really good. Thank you. It's a beautiful day in Toronto. It's sunny. It's a little cold, but I like the cold.
Yeah.
So, yeah, things are good.
Yeah, it's. I think we have a similar weather pattern here in Boston. It's a bright, sunny day. My beautiful wife and I just returned from taking our beast for a stroll around the neighborhood, and it's wonderful just to be able, even though we're in various stages of lockdown and protecting each other and keeping each other safe, it's still nice to be able to get outside and enjoy the sun and feel that sun on your body.
Yeah, exactly. I do tend to go for a little walk later on. I know it's a little cold, but if you dress for it, it's fine.
Yeah. So I'm excited to learn about the Tillson Bugger Adventures, especially the first story, The Case of the Missing Mustache.
Yes, that's actually so that's the second book in the series. So The Case of the Missing Mustache, about a centipede. And it's just the stories, they're about three kids. Two are twins, but the three of them, Tia, Phil, and Vivian, they're best friends. So they just have a summer break, they're out having fun, and they just tend to always fall into mischief, and which involves a bug. Hence the Tillson Bugger Adventures. You know, they're little buggers. Mm-hmm. Tillson Bug is the name of the town, and then they always run into a bug, and then they learn about the importance of that particular bug in the story.
Yeah, I like how you said that, because I'll be honest, it wasn't until relatively recently that I started to appreciate the importance, that the fact that bugs have a role to play in our ecology more than just being annoying to us.
Exactly, and that's how it actually started, was with the first story, The Swarm That Swarmed, which is about bees. So people, and it's understandable. They have a fear of bees because they sting, or they can sting. It's normally wasps that are the ones that hover around our food and our picnic. Bees tend to leave us alone because they just want the flowers. But, if they feel threatened, they will sting. So that's pretty much how that book started, because my bees swarmed and the neighbors freaked out a bit. And and then I realized, bugs are so important. I know they're annoying and they're creepy, but they really do serve a purpose. And without them, like, the balance can be off, can be tipped. So all these little critters, definitely do serve a purpose. And that's what the kids learn in each story, is what their purpose is. Doesn't mean their fear is gone, but they understand their purpose.
Now, what is your background? Did you study the science of bugs in college, or are you coming at it from a kid-centered view?
Yeah, I actually did not study. I studied political science.
But there's a lot of insects in politics these days, so.
You're right, exactly. But no, I did study about beekeeping. I did study that, and when I was a child, I was very interested in bugs. There's a funny story where I collected a bunch of worms and I stuck them in my little tic-tac container. I had a fascination with boxes. So I stuck them in there, and I'm like, oh, these are my little pets, And I brought them to my room, and it was nighttime, and I heard my mother coming up the stairs, and I thought, I got to hide my worms. So I stuck them under my pillow in the Tic Tac container. I fell asleep forgetting about them, and they were like the morning when my mother came to, they're all over under my pillow, of course. But no, I found them interesting. I used to play with them as a child, or I used to dig up in mud. But I had a fear. I did have a fear of spiders and of centipedes. So I understand that there is a fear of them, and that sort of. So I never understood the fear of bees, because I do like them, but I don't have a fear of bees, but I could understand where people were coming from, because I have a fear of all these other bugs. And they're so small, but we tend to still be fearful of them for some reason. Mm-hmm. But yeah. So that's what that came about.
So how did you make the jump from political scientist to children's author?
Well, I actually wrote, so for my university paper, I wrote articles, And then I just freelanced here and there with an Italian newspaper. And I also started working at Rogers Television, which is just a local TV station. So I did that for about 10 years. It was all volunteer, but I was very committed. Every week I did a story. So I have a background of writing, and I became a news writer. So after I graduated, I also studied broadcast journalism. So I was a news writer for a bit. But I always wanted to do creative writing. So I thought that was a great opportunity to kind of, take my background of writing and merge it with my love of bees. And then it was I just figured, I just write this one story, have fun with it. But then I had so much fun with that, and I got good feedback. So I thought, maybe the kids have another adventure. And I did the second book, and I'm working on the third book right now.
It seems like it's turned into a real kind of passion for you. And one of the other things that I noticed on your website, this is really a team effort.
Yes, it is, exactly. So I found a wonderful illustrator, fantastic. She was actually a graduate of a local college. And I just wanted something, and I love all the storybooks out there. They're colorful. She had this, she works with watercolor. And I thought, wow, that's really nice because it's still colorful yet muted. And it had just a wonderful calming feeling when you do look at the books. And my boyfriend, who is a poet, so I asked him to write the introductory poem to the story. So when you open it, rather than saying, I acknowledge so-and-so, like I don't have an acknowledgement in my books, but I have a little poem, and he just writes a funny little blurb about whatever is going to happen, and then right into the story it goes. So it's just a fun team effort for sure.
Yeah. How is it that you said it was a fun team effort? It's you enjoy kind of bringing the team together and leading them into the creation of these books?
Yeah, but you know what? But I do, but at the same time they lead me. So they help me as well. So I'll write the story, and then, I'll kind of figure out how I'd like the pages to be laid out, and I'll send the manuscript to the illustrator. And I tell her, okay, I'd like to see this and this and this, but then she'll come back and be like, well, what about this? Because she has the illustrator eye, I don't. So of course I would take her lead on that. So I can make suggestions, but it's, at the end of the day, it's really how she envisions it, because she is the artist. And again, with my boyfriend, who's the poet in this, same thing. I'll just kind of be like, I'd like to have this idea, but he's creating the poetry. You can't tell someone how to be creative. Mm-hmm. So he'll just come up with something, and it's like, yeah, you know what, I like that. It's fun. It's happy. It's yeah.
So we should acknowledge and let folks know their names. So we're just not going online looking for Fernanda's boyfriend.
Yes. So Kizan is the illustrator, and Mike Gallick is the poet.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, it makes sense learning a little bit about your background and learning that you were did some beekeeping or studied beekeeping as a kid. So it makes sense that you have that connection with bees for the first story. What's your connection with centipedes, and what are we going to learn about centipedes in the case of the Missing Mustache?
That I'm scared to death of them. So that's how that came about. I'm thinking, okay, what bug? And I'm not writing about spiders, because spiders are my phobia. So I will not research them. I will not look them up on the computer. It was enough I had to research centipedes, because they keep popping up on my screen now, and on huge and enlarged. So I just thought, what bug isn't obvious or fun? I mean, obvious, yes. A lot of people are afraid of centipedes. But bees, they could be cute. You can draw them really cute, cutesy, whatever. But centipedes are just creepy. All just the entire thought of them creeps me out. So I just thought, what? I wanted to do a story where they're indoors. So the first one, the swarm that swarmed, they're outdoors. And then I wanted to bring them indoors for the second book. And because it's raining outside, so we thought, okay, let's have some fun. What kind of mischief can they cause inside the house? And they do cause a lot of terror inside the house, especially after they see this centipede. And and then they kind of get their hands on an encyclopedia and they do some research, realizing, a centipede isn't really an insect. It's under the shrimp family, apparently. And it's like, okay, yeah, we're still scared, but, we'll respect them. They eat all the little critters in our homes, like the mites and the smaller spiders and all that. So they're kind of like the little insect vacuum. So, yeah.
Well, I don't mean to terrify you, but I have a little spider story.
Oh God!
Here in my our studio here is in our basement, and it's all finished and beautiful. And we also have our guest room here, and we've hosted international students in our home for many years. And one year we had a wonderful young woman from China living with us, and really became a great part of our family. In which she was leaving and actually moving on to university. I was driving her to move her into the university, and I said, "Hey, what can we do to make the living space more attractive for the next student?" And she said, "Well, you might want to get rid of the spider." And he goes, "Spider? There's a spider. Why didn't you tell me there was a spider in your room?" And she said, "Well, I love him. He's great. He was my pet, but the next person might not." So the spider is now in the studio, and I get to watch him walk across. Oh no, he's adorable, and he actually came in really, really handy. He one of the entrances that goes out directly into our garden. Some wasps decided to make their nest right outside of that entrance. And we didn't know it, and we walked out one day, and we all got stung. But the wasp came into the house, but our friend the spider took care of them all, caught them in his web, and they're all gone now.
How big is this spider?
It's not too big, but he had a very extensive network around that door. We don't use it that often. So. And now everybody's thinking that I just have this creepy studio with spider webs and spiders and dead wasps hanging around.
No, they do serve a purpose. And actually, in both books, they make an appearance. There is in the first book, they sort of comment, like little Vivian says, bees aren't as creepy as as spiders, like those insects type of thing. And then you see a little spider saying, "Hey, I'm not an insect, I'm an arachnid," or whatever. So they do but I'm getting this information from Mike. He gives me the research, like he knows, I don't search anything on my computer to do with spiders. And then the second book, I forget, or something like, "Oh, what did I ever do to you?" Because Vivian, she has a fear of them in the story. So that type of thing. So they do make an appearance. Maybe the very last book in the series will be the spider, just to kind of wrap things up. But I'll make Mike do all the research and probably even write the book. And I'll be the poet in that one there.
So you said that the third book is in the works right now. What insect are we going to meet in the third book?
Well, it's called The Alien in the Apple Tree. So I don't know if I can give it away yet.
I got some ideas here, Mike. We'll tease. How many books are you envisioning in the series?
To be honest, I really would love to write novels. Yeah, and so I'm finding this is, writing children's books is so difficult. It's actually, I find it really challenging. You have to be succinct. You have to write in a certain language that I don't understand. So, I'll write my story, I'll clean it up, goes to the editors, and then they kind of, help me. They why not say it like this? You're reading to an audience of, 7 to 11 or whatever. It's a young audience. So they'll make the suggestion. So I do find it difficult to write for children. It's getting a little easier as I continue writing and the editors give me sort of feedback. But, I'd almost I see maybe 5 books in the series, maybe ending it with the spiders. I think that actually makes sense, especially since the spider makes an appearance in all the books. But my goal is really just to write longer, just a novel and for adults, a mysteries and things like that. So, I'm working on a manuscript now. I actually have about 5 chapters done. So I'm kind of juggling between the two. So the third manuscript in the Tillson Bugger Adventures series, I'm wrapping that up. So I'm just kind of figuring out between a couple of conclusions, and then I'll be working with the illustrator next year, kind of putting that together. I delayed that a little bit just because of everything that happened. I was busy with work and kind of, my creativity was kind of missing, but it's back.
We are delighted that Fernanda's creativity is back, and we would be so delighted if you would be back to join us for the next exciting episode of Reading with Your Kids. Be sure to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram and TikTok, and at Jedley Magic on Twitter. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we want to start by thanking our guest, Roger McMullen. Be sure to check out Cicadapocalypse. We're also very, very happy that we had a chance to listen back to our interviews with Ana Maria Rodriguez and Fernanda Lazaro. I want to thank everybody who takes the time to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and sends us a message using the contact button up at the top of the page. We'd love to know what you love about the show. We'd love to know what we could be doing better, and we'd especially love to know who you would like to hear in a future episode of Reading with Your Kids. Want to thank my amazing team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady, Judy Hu. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all of her support. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place, and you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.